Mr. Allard's Neighborhood. Small town feel with big time ideas. After all, you are entitled to Brad's opinion. Here's your host, Brad Allard.
Well, another great week. How you doing, Greg Cooper? You doing right?
I'm doing good. Just trying to keep up with.
Well, we're going to talk about
on?
the school voucher business. We were going to talk about property tax, but school vouchers have taken priority in this legislative session.
They're a little more time sensitive, for sure.
Yeah, and you're going to explain that time. And right before the show, you told me that this has been put on express practically for legislation anyway. Legislation is a very slow-moving process.
Yes.
But this one seems to be moving along at some clip. And then also we'll talk a little bit about Helen Curran's appearance in Joshua Saturday. I saw clips of it, both sent to me and both online. And I've seen more antagonistic meetings than that, but I could tell there's some emotion in that room.
It is. It's a big. This is a big deal. What's going on with schools.
I wouldn't characterize it as a shouting match, but I would characterize it as there's a lot of people paying attention to this, to say the least. As far as the property tax issues, where do they stand briefly? But we are going to spend most of the show about the school voucher bills. But where does it stand most right now, anyway? I'm asking you.
I'm sorry.
You were looking at your.
I'm sorry. Yeah, I'm sorry. Say that again.
Well, you were looking at your screen. That's fine.
Yeah.
I do that all the time too. Where does the property tax bill stand at this moment?
So it's been filed. It's being circulated. There's been a few other reps that have filed an identical bill. So there's multiple bills. So that's good. It's more than just a single individual that's pushing it. A few of us locally were down there 2 Thursdays ago, met with numerous chief of staffs, legislative directors, and reps trying to raise awareness to it. The bottom line is it needs to get into committee, have invited testimony and public comment, and start really doing the roll up your sleeves, heavy digging on it.
Right.
And there's two main ones that Representative Kerwin's filed. One is to eliminate property taxes. She's got a third one that's in Ledge Council. That's a different kind of version, a different lane. And when we talk about elimination, it's about where is the money going to come from if you're removing it from property taxes, where's that revenue going to come from?
Right.
So the one that's been filed and is hopefully going to get a committee date is a bill, House Bill 2220. And that's the main one that most people locally are familiar with the eliminating property tax group. Craig Hunley runs the one here. There's a few across the state that are. That's the one that is the farthest along at this point. And then there's another one that revamps how the Central Appraisal District Board of Directors are elected. It gives more control for them to be elected by the people, opposed to the political subdivisions allocating votes.
I'm going to run through the sponsors quickly because we are fighting time. Josh here is running the show, and I'm looking at the schedule. Looks like he's back to back until quitting time today, right?
Yeah, pretty much. Sun up to sundown.
Well, it's good for you. It keeps you off the streets. Anyway, let's go ahead and talk about the sponsors real quick. Of course, our friend Otto at our place, and he's always the big supporter of this show and this community. And it's the food is great, the service is great. That's why I keep going. There's about 3 places in town I do business in, so to speak. Our place is one, of course. The next one is Gina's. I do a lot of stuff at Gina's. I really do like the food. I mean, it's easy to say that when you're sponsoring it, but no, I really do like the food. It makes it easy to sponsor them. And also go to Daydream Coffee when I just want a quick meeting or something like that. Do you know what that is?
Is that a new?
It used to be Dwell.
Oh, okay, Dwell. Okay.
Yeah,
I'm very familiar with Dwell.
Yeah, so it's the same spot. It's owned by a family whom I taught the kids, and I did not know that till about 2 months ago. Anyway,
last time I went there to go to Dwell, and it was closed, and I was like, so it's good to know it's back at Wisconsin.
Yeah, the people that own it own that Panda and Tie Shop.
Okay,
and so they're expanding, I guess. But anyway, back to Gina's. Otto's actually paying for this. Gina's and Otto's great, and our place are a great place to go for what you need, for food, for relaxation, for conversation. Also, thank you to Wild Cigars. Same thing. It's a good place to go for, for cigars. I don't know if you're a cigar smoker, Mr. Cooper, but you probably know somebody that does. If you're not, and it's a great place, a great humidor. I've learned a lot about cigars actually. I go there and every now and then to sponsor care kind of thing, and we'll talk about it. And I was always surprised at the variety. I'm just remember my old man just buying cigars at the store, and that's what he smoked, right? But
I'm an Oliveros fan.
yeah,
Oliveros.
well, my dad hasn't smoked cigars in many, many years now, but when I was a kid. But I'm just saying, if you really want an experience with cigars and a decent drink and a calm, quiet conversation to do business, they have a conference room, and it's a great place to go. Also, our friends over at Old Pro Roofing, it's supposed to be bad weather tomorrow night, or tonight, actually. I forget. It's a Tuesday. I'm always skeptical about weather, but you don't need to be. You need to have your roof checked by John Williams, 817-734-2756. He'll get that roof good looking over, and he'll tell you what you need or what you don't need. You know, he's not going to try to upsell you, so that's a good thing. He does my roof about once every June. I'll have him come out to check the roof out, and he'll tell me I'm good to go. So if it's bad weather, I don't worry about it. Also, our friend Jeff Kelly over at the Weddington Agency, 817-781-0546, or Jeff at jeffkellyrealty.com. He was on about 3 weeks ago when we were talking about how Johnson County is just expanding all over, particularly Godly, where you're at, right?
I'm in Joshua now, but
you moved to Joshua?
I used to live in Godly, yes.
Okay, well, Joshua's
my
blowing
kids
up
go to
too.
school in Godly, so
Yeah, at Godly and Joshua, you know, they are taking the lead a little bit, percentage-wise anyway, in growth, but Burleson's still booming, you know, and with all the issues that go with that. And so it's just, I don't know. I've been in towns that have been growing like this, seemed like all my life. That's the way Plano was when I was a kid. And so, you know, real estate was a big deal. Jeff can help you navigate that because it could get confusing. And he would tell you that even if the rates aren't exactly what you want, buy the house you want, and then you can always renegotiate the rates.
sure.
So, because the price won't change, you know, what you pay for it, and there you go. Also, Hot Works with Michelle Humphrey. Go get yourself a workout with infrared system. It'll be easier on your joints, easier on your bones and your tendons and whatever else. It's infrared workout, 11 different workouts. It's over off John Jones over at what they call Burleson Commons. That's over by the theater and Kroger and all that area. And there's a lot of booming business going over there too. They're expanding. So, but Hot Works is open 24/7. I'll give you a workout. And when I say it's open 24/7, it's a secure environment. You need the code, and it's a very secure environment. It's nothing to be concerned about, certainly. And so, in fact, I asked Michelle, who goes to work out at 3 a.m.? And you'd be surprised how many people do. They have either unusual schedules or they just prefer the solitude, I suppose. Also, Local Life Magazine should be out this week. You maybe have it already. I mean, it will be, if not today, tomorrow or Wednesday at the latest. It comes out every beginning of the month, and it's a great way to get your word out. 30,000 homes get it, and a lot of businesses have spare copies, so while you're waiting on your oil to be changed or whatever else, you can get that done. So anyway, Local Life Magazine is out this week. Also, Burleson Buzz, he being Cody O'Brien, will be at the city council meeting Monday night tonight, and he'll report what's going on. I saw the agenda, and the only thing I saw that really stood out to me on the agenda was, that little patch of road on Hewlin that goes under the bridge, and it's like very narrow, and this, and it floods all the time.
Yep.
They're going to be discussing some of that, some of the expansions of Hewlin Road, and so I don't know how they're going to fix that, but
I think I want to say that the county bond was going to address some area.
It is.
Hopefully maybe that's getting fast tracked, like they said. So
what the bond was not really to start turning dirt as much as preparing to turn
Correct.
dirt.
Absolutely.
Right. And
You're
doing
correct.
studies
Yes.
and, all this other stuff, what's feasible and not. And I've heard all these interesting ideas about what to deal. If you've ever been down that road on Hewlin, it kind of has this curve under the railroad bridge, and it's very narrow. I mean, most trucks of any size can't use Hewlin right now. So they're trying to figure that out. So we'll let them figure out. They got all the money and brains, and so they can figure it out. But anyway, I use the Burleson Bus for the radio station for getting my information, or a lot of it. Also, Medicare counseling. This is the new one. Jerry Kavanaugh. He just started last week. What this business does, he's part of a group that does Medicare counseling, and they're on the third floor over in that building where Rio Mambo and the Rim is and all that. I don't know exactly the name of that building, but everybody knows what it is. All right, it's on the third floor, and what they'll do is they'll help people that are joining Medicare not just navigate the system, but also they provide other services besides just filling out the forms. I mean, there's counseling, and there's and all types of counseling, not just how to use Medicare, but also if a lot of elderly people live by themselves, and so they may be eligible for other types of counseling. and it's all paid for by Medicare. It's one of the additions to the Medicare system from a couple of years ago, I think. And so if you're getting on the Medicare or you're on it right now, Jerry Kavanaugh can help you navigate through some of that because it's confusing.
Sure.
You know, I'm about 2 years away from it, and I just kind of glanced at it and like, ugh, why is it so hard? You know?
Yeah.
But Jerry Kavanaugh can help you with that, okay? And I don't have his number in front of me right now, but I'm going to get it because I want him to be available for y'all because he really does a good service. I've talked to him before when we were at Daydreams last week or the week prior, and I learned all about it, and it's really great. His number is 817-992-8034, or you can email him at GF Kavanaugh. That's I'll spell it for you because it's easier. GFCAVANA at SWBill.net. One more time. CFCAVANA at SWBill.net. So give him a holler or an email and see what you got. All right, let's go and talk about the property, not the property, I'm sorry, the school voucher. Now on Saturday, Miss Kerwin was at Joshua.
Yes.
I saw some of the clips.
Yep.
Saw some of the clips you put. I saw some of the clips that others put. And like I said, it was a pretty amped up meeting. I wouldn't call it inappropriate, but you could tell there's a lot of emotion about
Sure.
the voucher issue. They made a big deal about the fact that she left early. Was it that acrimonious or was it her schedule?
So let me preface this by saying one of Representative Kerwin's campaign promises was to have monthly town halls. This was her third town hall. She has made a commitment to move from municipality to municipality, so it's not always at the same spot. Last month was at Cleburne. This month she was in Joshua. The location was scheduled well in advance of all of the school bills dropping, all of the urgency that drove people to this meeting. So there's a lot of people are thinking that she scheduled it to keep it small. No, Mayor Kimball graciously offered up his city hall for his citizens, and she'll do this probably in Grandview. I don't know where all of them are scheduled, but different places. Her organization, her team did not release the schedule. The previous two were 10 a.m. to noon, and someone else released the flyer trying to get people to go. She did have a time of 11:30. She was going to go tour a Bitcoin facility. So her staff did not release the flyer that talked about that. So there's some miscommunication. A lot of people think that she was trying to do that. She's a freshman and she's making a lot of freshman mistakes, and her staff is young. And her chief of staff, this is the first time he's been a chief of staff. And I think that they're going through some growing pains.
Well, a lot of people don't realize just how small a staff is for a Texas
Absolutely.
rep. And it's not much bigger for a Texas senator.
Nope.
And they don't pay, all right? And so you're talking about probably a lot of kids right out of college or interns or maybe part-timers or things of that nature. So it is, people think of staff, they think of like Ted Cruz probably has 50 people working for him, and Roger Williams probably has nearly 30, 35, and all these other
she's got
avenues.
Three. She's got three.
She has three.
She has four. One is working. She's not on the payroll, but she's like her local liaison.
Right.
She has three, and one's an intern.
Right,
So,
and probably from UT or something like that. And this is a misconception. I've been in Rob Orr's office when he was the rep here, and there's about the size of this room, maybe. The good news is she's making herself accessible. The good news is municipalities are offering up their space to get her around. Joshua's used to having 5-10 people in their city hall council meeting. They were supposed to have a Zoom, like a audio and visual outside in the lobby if there was overflow. That wasn't working. That was something that the city hall they failed. That was a point of failure with them. They're not used to ever having to do that. So there was a lot of bad things that happened that
she's getting blamed that were intentional. But you need to prepare better. I mean, you got to look at it both ways.
Ironically, Saturday I got a mailer from Americans for Prosperity about Ms. Kerwin. I'll need to.
AFC, you'd be sending some out to American Federation for Children. There'd be another one, Jim.
Yeah, no,
coming out.
maybe that was it. It was a lobby group saying I need to express my gratitude to Ms. Kerwin and whatnot. Maybe, I don't know. Well, let's talk about the bills. So I know that you told me prior that they're going to be working on it this week and next because it's that priority. You know, as you pointed out, and I point out to classes, usually the lower the number means the more priority that's spent on the bill. And,
Correct.
And by, I don't know if it's mandate or tradition, probably both, that HB1 and SB1 are budget bills.
Yeah,
but after that,
they got to have the money to run it. So,
right.
yeah.
And so, but this is what HB3 and SB2. So that tells you just how much. And you told me SB2. I did read it passed.
Correct. The Senate. So
passed the Senate. Right,
right. S is for the Senate bill.
Right.
H is for House. Phil King is my senator. Where I'm at Joshua. So some people in the audience may have someone else, and then Helen Kerwin is District 58 rep.
And so
I think up here might be Rep McQueenie. I think up here if we're that far enough north.
What I read is only one Republican in the Senate voted against it.
Yeah,
and so it passed, and there wasn't really much doubt it was going to pass. I mean, the Republican control of the Senate is much more strong than it is in the House. Now, you told me that HB3 has 80 sponsors to it.
So, so the Senate has passed this type of legislation similar to this in other sessions. So this is normal for the Senate to have gotten this far. And then everybody remembers during the Republican primary, Lyndon Laird, Helen Kerwin, Dwayne Burns, the big thing was the discussion of HB1. That was last session, and a special session. That was the school choice bill. That was 177 pages. This is a dramatically different bill. So if anybody is thinking that it's the same bill, they need to go look at the new one. It's totally different. It's down to 35 pages, I think. So why this is a priority. So why is this a priority? So on the Republican primary, there was a ballot measure, and it was quoted that Texas parents and guardians should have the right to select schools, whether public or private, for their children, and the funding should follow the student. And it was a yes or no thing. And that was on the ballot measure, and that ballot measure passed at high 70%.
Right.
Then when the Republican Party went to I believe it was San Antonio, and they worked on their priorities and planks. Plank 84 is school choice. We support further empowering all Texas families to choose from public, private, charter, or homeschool options for their children's education and funding, which shall follow the student with, here's the key, with no strings attached. We oppose regulation on homeschooling or the curriculum of private religious schools and believe constitutional amendments should be adopted accordingly. In lieu of funding, citizens may use a property tax exemption. So conservatives have told the state that they want some form of choice. The question is the bill in line with this? And that's kind of where a lot of the confusion's coming. So that's how we got to where we are now. This week, HB2, House Bill 2, is having invited testimony and public testimony. That is a revamp of school funding. That's basic allotment and all the other funding lines. That's 140 some pages of school funding, major changes to school funding. That is going on right now as we speak, and testimony will start tomorrow. Next week, Tuesday and I believe Thursday, they're going to have testimony on HB3. So when we're talking about how fast this is moving, next week, school choice, school vouchers, ESAs, whatever you want to call it, is going to be in front of the Education Committee, and there's going to be big decisions made. And with these two bills, you can have dramatic changing to school funding and dramatic changes to school choice. So that's where we're at today.
I have heard, and this is just speculation on the internet, which is as useful as you might think it is, that the reason they're doing it next week and not the week after is because spring break, and that the teachers would be off and they go down to Austin and raise all sorts of opposition to this bill. But be that as it may,
well, it happens to be during my school's spring break, which is Godly ISD spring break, because we mirror them. So spring breaks are different for districts.
Right,
so,
right. Mine at Dallas Baptist is next week, but the one, I think most of them are 2 weeks. But I just thought that was kind of amusing.
It very well could be.
I mean,
but they're going to have
I am been keeping up with the voucher bills in general terms. You got it much more specific because I think you have the bandwidth and the interest in just knowing the nuts and bolts. And I'm more of the big picture guy. And as far as what I'm seeing is that they're throwing money at public schools. They said, we're going to give more money to public schools. That's what the gentleman you interviewed with, Representative Buckley.
That's HB2. That's this week, yes.
Right. And they said, we're going to give you more money than you ever had before. And the response was, we've had more kids than we've ever had before. So that's only to be expected. Plus, the additional funding that you think is on top of growth is only going to be like a couple $100 per student, like $222 is the number thrown out. Is that an accurate number?
So let me pull up. So
this is what I saw in the clips, and I also read it.
So there's 200. So everybody gets wrapped up in what's known as the basic allotment. Okay, the basic allotment is the starting point for school funding, and since 2019, that's been at $6,160. HB2, and we don't have specific numbers yet, and this is one of the concerns we want, and this is called a fiscal note. This is released with legislation. We haven't seen that yet. I just looked for it to see if it was posted, and it's not posted as of this morning.
Well, my students in Texas government know that any bill that spends money has to have a fiscal note from Glenn Hager to our comptroller to say, yeah, we got the money or we don't have the money.
Correct. So that's not released yet. So I can't look at that to give you the specific numbers. Well, and that's important. But according, and so for those that don't know, Chairman Brad Buckley, House District 54, he is the chairman of the Committee on Public Education. He gave, he graciously allowed me to interview him for close to an hour.
Yeah, I saw that. Yeah. So by the way, guys out there in the vast listening audience, if you want to see this interview, it's on your page.
Texas Transparency Project Facebook.
Right. Yeah. And I think I shared it as well, but it's on your page. And that's where I got some of this. Apparently.
And there's some good talking points on there. It's worth a listen if you want to see what's in this. It's a very brief summary, but
but if you want to get more details, Texas Transparency Project has those details for you.
A lot more than you get in a town hall,
right?
So unfortunately, but,
the thing about it is, I've been in the public sector long enough, and when every time the legislature says we're giving you more money than ever before, and I'm like, we're also proportionally bigger than we've ever been before, not just because of migration, whether legal or illegal, it doesn't matter. We're getting a lot of Californians, that kind of thing. We're getting a lot of people from Illinois, for great reasons too. I don't know why anybody still lives in Illinois unless they have to. That's a commentary there. But the point is that you really can't look at the fact that, okay, we're going to give you $1 billion more when you proportionally have that many more students.
So what they're doing is, the basic allotment, they're increasing $222. I believe that's the number, which sounds like, oh my gosh, that's terrible. School funding funds different, and I'm going to call them lanes. But if you're a GT student, if you're a special ed student, if you're in CTE, career technical education, so all these different kind of categories that a child can fall into, they're putting money in these individual categories. So when they talk about they're putting a ton of money in the school systems, that's an accurate statement.
Yes.
They're not putting it in the basic allotment, which is what a lot of people get wrapped up in. So now where that money should go, that's a tough, that's to make,
that's where
that's be
politics comes in, isn't it? Right.
There you go.
Because as a special ed, I wasn't a special ed parent, but as a teacher, I was constantly exposed to special ed,
correct?
Both in the classroom and down the hall, so to speak.
There's a lot of money for special ed. A lot of money,
and that's only appropriate because it is a very, very labor-intensive teaching job.
Sure.
A lot of these kids have one teacher, maybe, individual teachers, and so and if I had a special ed child, by golly, I'm going to get that money. I guess the real problem for a lot of people that are opposed to school vouchers, and I guess if I had to put a vote yes or no, I still lean against vouchers because I just don't think that the motives behind some of the people, not all of them, but some of the people, particularly Mr. Dunn out in Midland,
Mhm.
has the best interest of the school children in mind as a whole. I think they're so focused on having public support for religious oriented education, which I had for my children, but I paid for it.
Mhm.
When they went to Holy Cross, but I didn't expect the government to pick up the tab. It's a sacrifice we made, my
Yep.
wife and I. I don't, a lot of people don't trust the motives of people like Americans for Children or whatever that group is. They don't trust the West Texas oil money that's funding a lot of the voucher movement.
Sure.
And it surely did in the last election, obviously. Miss Kerwin got elected in large part because of the money that Mr. Dunn and others put in their campaign, and some gentleman in Pennsylvania, whom I don't know what his
So
fight was, but
they Dade Phelan, Charles Butt threw tons of money at Representative Burns, and Jeff. I think it was Jeff Yass and Greg Abbott threw money. So this was you're correct in saying that both sides took a ridiculous amount of money. And most of the mailers and stuff, those are in-kind donations. They didn't control that, but both sides, there was so much money thrown into on both sides, an obscene amount of money for a district like
I never saw anything
58.
like that before. I've seen well-financed campaigns, but not seven figures for a state seat.
And to put this into perspective of how big of a deal this was, the chairman of the education committee, I want to say he's been there for multiple sessions. He has received on Transparency USA under $500,000 total. There was well over $1 million thrown into this last race in Johnson County, like astronomical amounts of money. And it was on both sides, and it was in a lot of districts, in districts where the school choice issue was trying to be driven as the main factor.
Well, I understand in a sense why people think that they've had enough or fed up with public schools. But I don't know if the solution basically is to drain resources and talent, if you will, from the public sector and put it in the private sector as such. Because, first of all, one thing I would say is that not all private schools are, the kind of, in our mind, we think private schools are higher quality. That's not always true. A lot of private schools are great, but a lot of private schools are also pretty mediocre. And people don't see that as such because they think, well, if it's private and people are paying for it, it must be better. That's not necessarily the case, because I really do believe BISD offers a child in this district so many more opportunities than the vast majority of private schools. Now, I understand there's issues with public schools about discipline, about class size, about curriculum content and all that. But my response to that is, if you really feel like that's going on in your school district here in Burleson or Joshua or Crowley, fill in the blank, then if the community is going to allow that to continue, then really the burden is on them, not just the schools. Here's what always got to me about school teaching a little bit is that I could be a better teacher than I was, and I probably could have been, but I can't do much with some students whose culture or background or home life is so ill prepares them for education. And you get that. I mean, education's not universally valued. You'd think so, but it's not. So they come to school and they don't get discipline at home. Now, how should we expect them to get discipline in the classroom? They're not going to go and be wild as a hairy goat outside of the classroom, then come into my classroom and be yes or no, sir. That's not going to happen.
So let's start with this about talking about choice and private schools and all that. So right now, Texas, the state of Texas, has wonderful, awesome school choice. Texas is some of the best choice options that exist. The question is, should taxpayer money be allowed to fund that? So as a school choice issue, we have great school choice. There are, and I want to say 10 options within 10 separate options that are really, really solid, whether you're homeschooling, private schools, co-ops, and different lanes and ability to get certain types of choice within the public education system. And so we have great choice. When you start talking about private schools and all that, and like private schools are better or not better and all that. So the first question you have to ask is, and you start talking about discipline and parenting, are we willing to begin to legislate parenting, and are we going to go away from saying that parents are the ultimate decision maker in education? And so if parents are the ultimate decision in education, like I intentionally choose to place my child in a 3-day-a-week, 6-hour-a-day homeschool co-op, and that gives me the flexibility to do more that I want them to do at home where they're not as tied up in a public school. So this is me as a parent advocating for what I feel as a parent is in the best interest of my mind. So we have to, when we start talking about parents and their role, I agree. There is no doubt in my mind that we have a societal issue with how we approach this problem. But we have to be really, really careful before we go down a road that talks about, are we going to legislate what parents do? And that's scary to me.
That's a good point. I mean, I'm not at the point where we say, well, if your kid acts like a jackass in the classroom, then we fine the parents, because Lord knows I would have run up my parents' bill and my kids would have run up my bill.
I agree.
Because kids are kids. Yeah. And I'm not talking about kids being kids. I'm talking about kids being unprepared for education because it's not valued anywhere in their lives. And so if people want to, in BISD, I'm going to focus on them. If they think that this voucher bill is going to hurt schools, they need to understand the motivations behind it aren't solely nefarious, but if they think that these things are happening in their schools, they need to be more active about it and less passive. And
yes, yeah. People need to be more active wherever they fall on any issue. There is no truer statement than that.
And so
there's no question.
No, but I still support the public schools because, first of all, I went to what was considered to be a leading high school in 1980, and we did. This is Plano Senior High, and we wouldn't. I mean, every school in the county offers more than what Plano Senior High did in 1980, and so we offer more and we have more opportunities for kids and all this. I would hate to see that to be short-circuited because of some sort of ideologically driven animus towards public schools or public anything. I mean, this is not just in schools. I mean, the move to privatize or subsidize isn't just in schools, but it's across the board. And so I just have a real concern that a lot of our representatives, including Ms. Kerwin, are being driven by funding and by people that are pushing an ideological point at the expense of Texas public schools.
So the funding, I want to make this clear. We're here to talk to Bill. I'm not trying to push a side either way. We're trying to get out the information.
Well, that's why it's entitled to my opinion. Yes, because that is my opinion.
Because people love, as you know, because you're like me, you get out there and we talk. People always like to tell you what your intent is, right? Mm-hmm. So the funding for the choice issues is not coming out of the public schools. It's not. So now the Republican plank that was voted on by the Conservative Party, they were asking that
this is
okay. Well, let's see here.
Well,
how do you pay for school choice without defunding our public schools? I don't think anyone has explained this in a way that okay. So
that's what you're doing now.
Yeah, that's what I'm doing now. So
okay, this is from
Miss Crisp.
Yeah.
Okay, so the funding is going to come from the general fund, which I learned from Chairman Buckley. So the state fund, the state's general fund is not funded by property tax, and that big bucket of money, everybody talks about the surplus, that is many funding lines going into the general fund, and sales tax, lottery, oil and gas money. One of the biggest ones I found out is vehicle sales tax. I had no clue.
Oh, I did.
I know it's expensive.
Yes, it is, and also all these fees you pay for whatever. So,
and I'm not saying this in a way to push for or against this, but they're not going to. It's not going to pull money away from a public school and send it to one of the choice options that's in HB3. However, now if there is enrollment decline, which leads to a lower average daily attendance, because everybody let me rephrase that. Funding is determined by daily attendance. That is the primary driving factor for how much school gets. How many kids are in butts in schools on a daily basis? Now, I think that a lot of people think that if this bill passes, it's like a light switch and every kid is eligible to go do this. That is, there is nothing farther from the truth. They need to look at this more as a dimming switch, and it's a very slow dimming switch. So, there's a small amount of kids that are eligible for this, and then that increases over time. So this is a surplus of general fund dollars to spare. I didn't realize. In my opinion, Ms. Crisp, the general fund, when they're sitting on a big bucket of money, that means that we're being overtaxed in many ways across the board. That's a whole nother issue, and everybody knows where I stand on overtaxation.
Right.
So, yes, they have a bucket of money, and they want to tell you how to spend your overtaxation. That is correct, and this is one of their ideas.
Okay, so just to clarify this, more finely, I suppose, the money that would go to fund a lot of these options for school vouchers is not going to come from the public education budget, but from general fund budgets.
And let me make this clear. This is what the chairman of the committee chairman is saying. We're waiting for a fiscal note, which will explain this in a lot more detail. But this is not like taking 20% of a school district's budget and giving it into these programs.
Okay.
It's not. And we don't have the fiscal note on House Bill 2, which is being decided this week. So if there's anybody that wants input in House Bill 2, they need to go to Texas Legislator Online and look up House Bill 2 and submit written testimony as that's made available, or go to Austin and speak, because there's a lot of money coming into public schools. The basic allotment's not changing a lot, but there's a lot of money in other ways.
What also some people that are opposed to vouchers, they say, okay, let's say that they're more conversant on this. They understand that it's not going to decrease public school funding this year. But we're not always going to be as economically viable as a state. We're going to go through tough times. What's going to happen when cuts have to be made? It's going to be cut to public education. It's going to be cut to the amount of money given for this voucher program. And so that's what some other people concerned is that this is just the first step.
I am always skeptical about, I call it legislative creep, because this stuff can change over legislative sessions, and that should be a fear in any piece of legislation.
Right, and it's like, okay, this sounds fine. We're going to take money from the general fund. We're going to take money from the surplus, and so don't worry, public school supporters. You're not going to be losing money. In fact, you're getting a little extra, and blah blah blah. 5 years from now, who knows where we are as an economy, or 3 years or 2 years. That's also kind of one of the downsides of having a legislature that only meets every other year for 140 days.
It's a double-edged sword. They can't do a lot of damage, but they can't get a lot of problems solved either.
Hey, they can't undo damage. Because I always think I taught this in class. Spring of 2001, we had one budget, then 9/11 happens, and everything went to crap. Same thing with we couldn't fix our problems from the Great Recession in 2008 until like a year and a half later, and we all had to live through that.
Sure.
But that's another issue. But the issue is that for some people, I'm really not going to get into the church-state relationship thing. That's to me. For me, the question is: should we be taking money and giving it to people who 9 times out of 10 already have the wherewithal to send their kids to private schools because that's what they're doing now? And so
you want an equity-based system, not an equal opportunity system?
I would not just say across the board, no, because I taught kids at Southwest Christian that some of them were getting help to be there, not just from the school, but maybe from like grandma or the parents are making real sacrifices, but I also had a lot of kids that spent their summers in Switzerland, kind of thing.
So
and so they don't need the help.
So you will be then, if that's the case, then you will be extremely happy to know that the overwhelming majority of House Bill 3 goes to people making 200% of the national poverty level. It's 500% in SB 2, and it goes to special ed. So if more than 100, and I'm not looking at the bill in front of me. So if I make a mistake,
Right. Don't worry about it.
hit me up
I've
and
made
I'll correct
mistakes
it.
more than once.
I'm more familiar with the Senate bill because that has a lot more information out because it's passed, like the fiscal and stuff like that. But 100,000 kids are eligible the first year. And if more than 100,000 provide, I believe it's 85% goes to special ed and low income. So you're servicing the people you're most worried about. They're front loading those people. Now, I think that is an equity-based system, not an equal opportunity system. That has nothing to do with whether I think that this is a good bill or bad bill. But those people are getting addressed in the beginning. I would also say that this is an opportunity for big business to come in and start a school. So why wouldn't I start a school that meets the requirements of SB 2 or HB 3 and say, I'm going to start this school. I'm going to make my tuition the max I can get from the government, and I'm going to put kids in this school, and then I'm going to offer a bad service. That is a fear of this. That is a big fear. But here again, this is where we talked about parents earlier. Parents need to be able to navigate through this. Now, what I will tell you is that there is a lot of the money allocated for this bill that goes to create. So the comptroller is controlling this. The comptroller has a job it does now. It has staff. It has a budget. So they're throwing this all on the comptroller. That's going to require a lot more staff, a lot more money. They're creating new education service providers that their role is to market and attract parents to navigate this system and look for options. That's going to, a lot of the money goes into the infrastructure that has nothing to do with education kids, but provides them the option. So there's a lot in this bill. And here again, anybody that wants to talk about it, because doing it in an hour show, we got 10 minutes left. It's rough.
That's why we always have you come back. It's our way.
Got about a week and a half till this is done. But, unfortunately,
we also have that property tax issue. We kind of put on a side burner for this.
That'll be right after this.
Yeah, but as far as
this is a people really, and whether you're for this, against this or not, and I'll tell you what I'm concerned with this. Number one is, on one day, so this was authored by Chairman Brad Buckley, House District 54, and on one day, literally almost every House of Representative member jumped on board with this, and they authored it. And we have yet to see the fiscal note. We have yet to see the bill analysis. We have yet to hear invited testimony. We have yet to hear public comment. And I go, now, yes, this stuff can be changed in committee. Yes, they can do floor minutes. However, they can also change how some of that works. So the appearance of this, and I can't get into people's heads or intent, but the appearance of this is that this thing is being steamrolled along as fast as possible, and something this important and this big, and really, I usually don't like things slowed down. I really wish this was slowed down a lot.
Yes, me too. But that's the aspect of having such a short legislative period. You said a couple of things when you're describing it. You said if it's going to be not just a universal benefit, but based on income. You said 200% rather, the national poverty rate and all that. That's not. What is that? About $80,000.
I think I want to say. I want to say that. So here again, when I start talking the specific numbers on a bill, I look at what's called the fiscal note. That has not been released for this one yet. So I want to say it's somewhere in the high 60s.
Okay.
I could be wrong in that.
How many families that are making in the high 60s can afford?
I haven't. Yeah.
I mean, the tuition for Southwest Christian is going to be, I'm going to guess, I know my last year there was $20,000 for a senior.
So,
And I mean, so let's say you even pay half that. The families are going to have to come up with 10 grand on their own. And if they're making just twice the poverty level, I don't know how they're going to come up with that kind of money.
so let me clear something up real quick with this. This is one of the concerns a lot of people have who, on the surface, support a choice education savings account, voucher, whatever you want to call it. Not every school is eligible for this. So Southwest Christian is going to have to make a decision. We are going to be, our Nazarene Christian or Joshua Baptist or, or Cleveland Christian, Fort Worth Country Day, all these different homeschool co-ops, right? Like where my kids go, they are 100% as they stand now ineligible. We have a ton of certified teachers teaching, and we have some moms that teach some electives.
Right.
They are not certified teachers. They will not be eligible under this. So anyways, so the schools have strings. The ones that are providing the education service, they will have strings if they want to take the money as tuition. So the parent of the kids, there's strings that they have to meet, and the entity that's taking the money, they also have strings.
It was one of
so
those
a lot of
strings.
them might not take this. So we don't know what Southwest Christian will do yet. That's their decision to make.
Well, pardon my interruption. I should let you finish, but
No, it's fine.
My one of those strings, would it be like standardized testing?
So in HB1 that was so contentious during the last special session, it was mandatory state assessment, which was STAR. Now it is one of the nationally norm referenced tests, and they get to choose which one it is. The individuals get to choose. So you got MAP, Iowa. A lot of people have heard of Iowa. I'm a fan. I think Iowa's a great test, great benchmark. But anyways, the fear of this is here we talked about legislative creep earlier, right? So when I see something like, we're going to let you choose one of these, this smorgasbord of tests. Well, if they're going to make you take a test and then they're going to collect that data, they obviously want to evaluate whether it's working. Well, if you're not comparing apples to apples, I can see in the future we need to solve that we can't compare apples to apples. So therefore now we want to drive it to one test that's the same, and that's nervous. So
Trish Wallace has a question for you.
Sure.
Or a comment. All right, it says, this just doesn't make sense to me. It seems like a bait and switch. What a mess. I feel public schools will suffer as parents jump ship thinking they will get a better education at a private school. Here's the thing.
Just real quick, so I don't run out of time.
Sure.
We have to talk about one of the big strings that people need to know about.
What
that's
is?
Scary. Okay. So
you can't drop that on us and go, see you in 2 weeks or 3 weeks or a month.
So one of the biggest strings is that, and it's on page 28 and 29 of HB3. Anybody that participates in this, all participants. So this is, think first grade, one semester, you take advantage of this, then go back to public school. All participants for a minimum of 5 years after graduation, you will have to fill out surveys that tracks a bunch of data. So people that take advantage, now this is as it sits now, so there's still a committee where it can get addressed. But however, as this bill sits now, all participants, everyone that takes this money, when they graduate, they're putting that on their children who will be adults, that they will have to have their data tracked. And this kind of stuff to me is very concerning.
Well, they try to do it at public schools, because when I was still with BHS, that was something that people wanted to know. How well were BHS or BISD graduates with Centennial also, how well were they doing it after high school graduation? And we couldn't make it work, not just for financial reasons, but also for civil liberties reasons. There are personal rights or privacy issues involved here. I wish I could talk about this for another hour, but we got some cowboys waiting out in the hallway, and there you go. Wealthy Cowboy comes on next.
I'm going to give them the section where that is, because that's one of the most.
Josh, throw up the journey up there, if you will, please. I'm sure you're familiar with the journey. My wife loves the station. We were driving around yesterday doing errands. I got to listen to it. 88.3 The Journey. I had Rich Hooper on last Thursday. Yeah, it was Thursday afternoon. And he promoted your show today, your appearance on the show today. So hopefully you'll get some broader coverage. And also this will be on tonight at 6 and tomorrow at 1 on community radio. So you can check that out again. And we went over a lot of information in a very quick hurry and whatnot. Also, a friend of my son's as well, and a former student. I'm going to pull up and read it itself. He is a member, is Caleb Tomlinson, or we call him Woody because that was his nickname. But Caleb Tomlinson is a member of a church called The Rising. Doggone it, where is that thing? I had it all set up, and then I just hit the wrong button, and there it is. All right, there it is. Yeah, it's called at the Uprising. I'm sorry, the Uprising. They're having a revival, and this is a church in Joshua, and they're having a conference for men on April 5th, beginning at 8:00 in the morning. And it's a men's conference. They have speakers and whatnot. And here is how he's promoting how they're promoting the revival. What does it take to be a man in today's society? What are the things that are holding you back that you need to be broken free of? Jesus is ready to break those chains. He's ready for a relationship with you that will trump all others. I'm sure no pun intended. All right. On April 5th, the Uprising Church is hosting a conference for men to come and understand what it means to be just that, a man, to be the spiritual leaders of the house and home, to realize that they are not alone and there is a brotherhood waiting to receive them. It's time to wake up. It's time to revive. Tickets are $25. Doors open at 8 a.m. and lunch will be provided and door prizes available. So if you're looking for that kind of conference for either yourself or somebody you love,
The Uprising?
the Uprising, it's a non-denominational church in Joshua.
Make dads great again.
Make dads great again. Yeah, make them relevant
There's
again.
a pun for you. So it's section 29.371 on page 28, and read that, learn it, love it. That is scary.
Right.
So one semester, this will apply.
Well, we got so much more to talk about, but like I said,
this is
schedule. We just hit the top of the surface, and of course, 2 weeks from now, who knows where it'll be.
Yeah. Well,
Pay attention, guys. The next couple of weeks. So, Irma, Trish, thank you for making comments. I said several more that are posted in. We appreciate y'all's attention to the matter. Please share it with friends. Like I said, this will be on at 6:00 tonight, 1:00 tomorrow, so you can hear it some more. Maybe at your leisure. Josh, thanks for being nimble on the keyboards as always.
Of course.
Are you gonna be here tomorrow?
I believe so, yeah.
All right, tomorrow at 11, I have the Amanda Mann Clark Project talking about colorectal cancer awareness. They have a fundraiser Saturday, and colonoscopies. And it's always funny because they talk about inspecting your shall we say bowel movements. They're very frank about it. But anyway, we'll talk about that. And even if colonoscopies aren't a very appealing topic, they're an important topic, and so we're going to talk about that tomorrow. So much on the school voucher. I appreciate your candor and frankness, and I appreciate your...
And this is complex. This is complicated. Like, people really need to. This is one of those things. Put some time in, learn about it, and make your voice heard. On whatever side you're on, whatever side.
Well, I appreciate your balance in the issue, your candor. I know you and I may not be completely 100 in sync on this, but you're not by no means an ideologue, and that's why I ask you on the show, because I can get kind of the rational analysis that we need. We appreciate the fact that you recognize in some of these bills some potential downfalls, as opposed to being an ideologue that says, school choice is the only option to anything.
Absolutely, I call them absolutists.
Yeah, you're not an absolutist. I appreciate that. So we're going to hook you up again before you leave.
Sure.
All right. And so again, y'all take care. Share this with people that are concerned about this issue, and we'll talk to y'all tomorrow.
Thanks for having me, Brad.